Today we're going to talk about the intellectual dark web, a very nerdy name for a consortium of different wealthy academics and pundits from a multitude of backgrounds who generally unify under a singular message. The left is too radical, and they're actively silencing us. Which is ironic, since we're reading about this phenomenon in the most respected paper on the fucking planet, which published an 11-page op-ed accompanied by some of the most hilarious photos ever taken of these nerdy men, women, and Joe Rogan. So maybe, just maybe, these thinkers are not being punished for their free thoughts? Take Ben Shapiro, for example, who appears on CNN and Fox News regularly.
Ben, you don't look too threatening. You're kind of a guy with some interesting ideas and thought-provoking conversations.
Or Jordan Peterson, who still has his tenured position in a respected university, wrote a New York Times bestseller telling people not to arch their backs and clean their rooms, and who makes a cool $80,000 a month on the side from his fans. He too has been all over the media outlets.
What do you think you've said that the left finds so provocative and upsetting?
Well, I pointed out quite clearly why they're factually incorrect and ideologically possessed.
This article is so oblivious that it talks about how marginalized these radical thinkers are for their thoughts, and then 2 paragraphs below we'll talk about how much money they're making and how successful they are. But then again, this obliviousness reflected in the article is also integral to understanding intellectual dark web messaging. For example, here's how Jordan responds to Ben's question of why the left has responded so negatively to his success.
I think it speaks to the pathology of the radical left instantly. They're absolutely incapable of viewing the world except through group identity terms.
Watch the lack of self-awareness as he monoliths a group he's inherently biased against by claiming that they're inherently biased against him. The left isn't exactly a monolith with some common nefarious agenda of spreading cultural Marxism and postmodernism like a lot of these IDW thinkers assert, but maybe they think that way because their ideologies are so firmly planted on the right that their perspective is a little skewed. And like, Jordan Peterson's not an idiot, he's an astute observer of the human condition, and he definitely knows better, so I'm gonna call it like I see it. This is purposeful hypocrisy to vilify the other side. Also, the other reason why I routinely criticize the IDW and their ideological allies who consistently platform them as new age thinkers is because none of their ideas are actually new. As a matter of fact, it's the same old rigid conservative piece of turd with a new coat of polish. These guys are boring conservatives who range from moderate to extreme, who often hide behind seemingly objective clinical research language, or even misrepresent themselves as liberal. Dave Rubin, with the ultimate goal of selling you traditional conservatism. So while they claim to break you free of monolithic thought, all they're actually doing is putting arrows in your owning the libs quiver. And for a lot of people, that quiver is full of justification for systemic racism that, more often than not, extends to the dark science of skull measuring, courtesy of Sam Harris and Charles Murray. And it's all because no one wants to be called a racist, so of course people are gonna look to intellectuals who will tell them that they're not wrong for fearing black people or Muslims, and people like Ben Shapiro do a very good job of manipulating facts to reaffirm others' bigoted feelings. And this makes them uniquely problematic because the masses are largely apolitical and susceptible to groupthink. So when Peterson or another breaks through to their consciousness with a piercing observation that is, in fact, really generic, and then uses that newfound influence over them to dive into something more Judeo-Christian traditionalist, they're effectively changing minds and bringing them on board to the conservative team. You should clean your room to become an active member of society. Also, Disney is trying to make you gay.
What?
Quick, look at these lobsters. And the worst part is, we on the left are sometimes responsible for pushing people in the middle over to the Shapiro, Peterson, Sam Harris side. I've said this a million times. Every time we try to stop someone from speaking or publicly shame someone who didn't really have it coming, we give ammunition to these rich assholes to play the victim on national television. Jordan Peterson and other conscious actors might not be saved, but the masses they speak to, who operate in the margins, still can be. So I ask you to be a little bit more tolerant to people with different opinions, and I also ask you to be a little bit more skeptical of who you idolize on the internet. That even includes myself.